Now, I know that there's a lot of national anxiety floating around these days. You may have heard that there's an election coming up. And I don't want to intentionally add to anyone's stress level this morning. But Christmas is less than 2 months away. I have no idea how many shopping days that translates to, but reading this morning's gospel passage made me think of the Charlie Brown Christmas special. And yes, I realize that this weekend I should really be more focused on It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, but here we are. To refresh your memory and prepare you for the season that is to come, in the Peanuts Christmas special, we learn that Charlie Brown is feeling rather depressed despite the fact there is holiday joy all around him. In order to counteract Charlie Brown's dark mood, Lucy suggests that he direct a neighborhood Christmas pageant, which he does, even though he's relentlessly mocked for choosing the puniest, barest, most pathetic Christmas tree in all the world as the centerpiece of his play. But the show must go on, and it culminates in a powerful retelling of the Christmas story that, for many people, has become an integral part of their holiday experience. One of the often overlooked details, and by far my favorite moment in the entire thing, is Linus standing on stage, clutching his ever-present security blanket, using verbatim the poetic words of Luke's gospel to share the true meaning of Christmas, and at the words, "Fear not," letting go of his beloved blanket. "Fear not, for I bring you tidings of great joy." Gets me every time. Because the gospel is all about letting go of fear. It's about letting go of all the worldly things we so desperately cling to. It's about letting go of the false sense of security that is so deeply embedded in the human condition, the idea that we're the ones ultimately in control of our lives when we so clearly are not. It's about letting go of life's fleeting pleasures in order to follow Jesus. Which brings us to the story of the blind beggar Bartimaeus. When we meet Bartimaeus in Mark's gospel, he is literally in the gutter, ignored, impaired, isolated. He's begging by the side of the road, as presumably he has done day after day after day. My guess is that he was pretty much invisible to those who passed by, like that box that sits in the front hallway you kept meaning to take upstairs, but now you don't even see. It's still there, by the way. But one of the reasons Bartimaeus was overlooked and shunned is that no one quite knew what to do with the blind back then. People strongly believed that looking into a person's eyes was a window into their soul, that you could tell a person's true character by staring into their eyes. But what about the blind? They couldn't be placed into the appropriate category because no one could read them. So they were left on the very fringes of society, outside the circle, abandoned, literally left in the gutter to die. Which is why his crying out to Jesus must have been both shocking and embarrassing to the crowd that has gathered alongside the road to greet Jesus. Suddenly, this voice emerges from the outskirts of the crowd, yelling, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." And the crowd tried to keep him quiet. They tried to restore a bit of dignity to the proceedings. They rebuked him and bid him to be silent, which only made Bartimaeus cry out all the louder. You have to remember, this is near the very peak of Jesus' rock star stage. The crowds surrounding him have grown bigger and bigger, and when he shows up in Jericho, the very same town where Joshua fought that famous battle where the walls came tumbling down, things have reached a fevered pitch. In Mark's gospel, this story immediately precedes Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem with all the palm branches strewn along his path to welcome him. And we all know that Palm Sunday, that journey, leads directly to the cross. But that's the context as Bartimaeus cries out to Jesus from the literal margins of society, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." And there's also a small detail in this story that speaks volumes, one that, at least to me, connects to the Charlie Brown Christmas special. See, if you stick with me long enough, it always comes back around. Usually comes back around. But after Jesus tells the crowd to bring the blind beggar to him, Bartimaeus throws off his cloak as he jumps up to meet Jesus. That is a Linus moment. And when he throws off his cloak, nothing has really changed in his situation. He's still a poor, blind beggar, and yet everything has changed because Jesus has called him into his presence. "Call him here," he says to the crowd. And that's when we hear that even before his interaction with Jesus, Bartimaeus threw off his cloak, sprang up, and came to Jesus. Now, a blind beggar would do well to keep his few possessions within arm's reach, especially in the midst of a large crowd. But so confident is Bartimaeus in the healing power of Jesus, he tosses his cloak back into the gutter and jumps up to meet him. His old life is left behind as he prepares to embrace his new one as a disciple of Jesus Christ. And it is that act of faith, that moment when he tosses his cloak aside with no guarantee that anything in his life would change, that he is transformed into a follower of Jesus. "Fear not, for I bring you tidings of great joy. Go, your faith has made you well." Yes, the world can be a scary place, full of uncertainty and anxiety and fear. It is such a human response to hold tightly to those things which we believe will provide comfort, the metaphorical security blanket, or a dirty but familiar cloak. Sometimes this manifests in the form of staying in unhealthy relationships, clinging to the security of material goods, putting our faith in human beings rather than in God. And so I'd ask you this: what is the blanket you need to drop? What is the cloak you need to throw off? What is it in your life that prevents you from fully following Jesus in heart, mind, and soul? These are hard questions, but there is such freedom and joy waiting for you on the other side. When you drop that blanket, when you cast aside that cloak, when you turn towards Jesus Christ and follow him, when you live out your faith not only with your lips but in your lives, there is freedom and joy waiting for you. The good news is that you don't have to do this alone. Bethesda-by-the-Sea literally exists to walk alongside you as you seek to follow Jesus more fully. That's why the very heart of our community is Sunday morning worship. It's why we invite people to serve God through the ministries of this church. It's why we encourage everyone to build deep and meaningful connections with fellow parishioners through small groups and fellowship events. Our mission, our focus, is all about walking alongside one another as fellow followers of Jesus. As individuals and as a community, we don't always get it right. We don't always do it perfectly. But we're on this journey together. We're on the path of discipleship. We're here to follow Jesus more fully. And collectively, day by day, we're moving ever closer to the kingdom of God.